Welcome again to this edition of Meet the Candidates. I'm David Nicholas, and our guest this time is Representative Bruce Rendon. He is a Republican from Michigan's 103rd State House District. As the incumbent, he is seeking re-election to a second term in this office. Representative, thanks for joining us.
Welcome. Well, David, it's always a pleasure to be with you.
It is Meet the Candidates, so in this case, as an incumbent, a chance for you to re-meet some of those constituents, if you will, and give folks, again, a little bit of the idea about your background and experience that you bring to the campaign.
Well, David, I'm a small business owner from Lake City, Missaukee County, where I represent the 103rd District, and been a builder and a dairy farmer for 30 years up there, making a payroll, signing the front of that check. And also a family man that's raised my family up there and educated my children there in Lake City Public Schools.
For the district itself, since 2010 to now, there has been obviously the 2010 census, the redrawing of the map. How is that changing the overall map of District 103?
Well, actually, my district now has changed. I'm losing Iosco County, but I'm gaining Crawford and Kalkaska County. So it's Missaukee, Kalkaska, Crawford, Roscommon, and Ogama counties.
As an incumbent for this race, what would you identify as the primary issues heading into the campaign?
Well, absolutely. The issue is keep continuing putting Michigan back to work. That's our main issue, and I've done a great job in that regard. Probably the biggest accomplishment we did right off the bat was change the Michigan business tax. And you know, that was so unfair to our citizens and our small businesses where jobs are created, and we had to relieve them from this double taxation. Myself, my own business experienced that. So now it's based on profit for the big corporations. And you know what? There are people out there that want to go to the failed policy of the past where we did pick winners and losers. Now it's straight across the board for everybody based on profit. But the big thing is those family businesses such as my own that we're going to pay just like the rest of the citizens of Michigan and no more double taxation.
What we always ask incumbents for these programs is to point to then, as issues are identified as key to the campaign, what, in looking back at a prior term, this being your past and first term in office, what would you say legislatively that as either the sponsor or primary supporter you would point to as what you have accomplished on that front?
Well, on a personal level, something that I'm very proud of is my Fallen Heroes bill. I was a sponsor. It is now Public Act 5 of 2012, our Fallen Hero bill, where we had protesting going on at our military funerals. And now we have protected everyone's rights, especially those involved in that funeral procession or burial service. Now it is not so broad that their rights are protected as well as those outside that 500-foot radius. So everybody's First Amendment rights are protected.
Were there goals that you set for a first term going in that we would put under the category of unfinished business for whatever reason, things that did not get fully enacted by this soon-to-be expired term, that would be things you would want to specifically reintroduce as, again, either a sponsor or supporter of legislation moving forward?
Well, David, really my goal is to continue putting Michigan back to work. And how will we do that? You know, more than any time in the last decade, our citizens have told us they feel Michigan is going in the right direction. And that's due to the fact that we have been fiscally responsible, and that's what you will see us continue. Through efficient government, the changes we've made, we have returned money now. Today, October 1st, taxpayers are going to experience a tax cut. And we were able to do that by coming up with a surplus budget after years' time. So 2 years in a row, the budget's been balanced by the first week of June, and people are recognizing that Michigan is moving in the right direction. I'll share a story with you, David. This week, doing doors this past week, I knocked on a door and they had a large remodel project going on. And after I talked with the constituent, I talked with the builder, and he told me he has got more work ahead than he knows what to do with. And I've talked to our local building inspectors, and their new home permits, even though it's still the mostly remodel, they've got more new home permits than they have in the past year. So things are moving ahead.
Does that mean then a maintaining of what has been put in place in these first 2 years that you have been in Lansing, or are there other initiatives that you would point to specifically that would build upon that or extend that moving forward?
There are policies being enacted, and what high-speed internet is a big issue for especially rural Michigan. You know, I spoke with a realtor, and they had 3 prospective clients, and their first demand was access to high-speed internet. Yet they wanted to live in northern Michigan. Well, the end result was their first need, they had to move them to a more metropolitan area to get them into that home, to work out of their home and have that requirement. So there are bills being worked on to help that infrastructure go in.
As you've been campaigning, you've mentioned specifically the economic issues and mentioned the anecdotal story of what the builder told you. Other issues that the voters are telling you in District 103 that they would like to see specifically addressed for you as a candidate for a second term in this office?
Well, again, it's continuing on putting Michigan back to work, and what the voters are saying is they're seeing their children come back home. They have left. You know, that was the hardest. Michigan being the only state in this past decade to lose population. And it's a proven fact that it was our college graduates and our future taxpayers that left. Because if they didn't have a paycheck on Friday night, they were going somewhere where they would have. And now we're starting to see them come back. And that is my focus, just to continue putting Michigan back to work.
Are any of the younger voters giving you that sense, the younger potential voters? Obviously, their parents are seeing that as a reality, but what about the younger voters? What do they say in terms of the climate and what the state is like and what they would like you to do?
You know, some of the failed policies of the past, our young people now, as they say graduate from college or move on, they're experiencing the ill effect of those policies, and they are recognizing and engaging themselves on where Michigan is going.
Education then itself, when we talk about these as college graduates or younger people coming up, it's typically been identified as a prime issue of many campaigns. What on the education front would you, first of all, looking back at this first term, would say has been done on the education front that you would put forth running on your record?
Well, I've been fighting very, very hard for our students in the classroom. And I will tell you, I've been listening to what they've had to say. And being a product of public education, my whole family, my wife and I both, and our children, I will continue on helping more money. And now with this surplus budget we've got, we are returning more funds to the classroom. And that's very important that we do that. But at the same time, we have, I can remember back last year, through all the cuts and everything, a lot of us northern Michigan reps were able to get together, and we got an amendment in there where our more rural schools, where our funding is not in parity with some of the more metropolitan schools, we were able to get an amendment in there where it returned $101 back to those schools if they would do 4 or 5 best practices. And many of those schools took advantage of that.
And then what would be a goal on the education front, a goal or goals that you would have moving forward if elected to a second term?
Well, I would like to see more money go back to the school systems, and we are working on that. You know, it was a shared sacrifice by us all. But the fact, for example, that today Michigan income tax is being cut, going back to the citizen, through best practices, we would like to see this also happen with our school system. And I think we're on the right track of getting more money back there. At the same time, we have made some strong policy changes, such as tenure, and we've changed unemployment tax and those sort of things to get people accountable. We've made some choices for parents out there where they can send their children. So anyways, I'm very much in favor of enhancing our education. But to think that we don't have to have some changes and continue the past that's went on for many decades, there will be changes coming.
The school funding equity issue that you brought up in terms of bringing some of that money back to particularly the rural districts, are voters telling you that it is time to do something with either to change completely, start over, make some adjustments to Proposal A, that overall funding mechanism? What are the voters saying to you? What would you want to do if elected to a second term?
Well, I'll answer you this way, David. Many of our school systems in my district have recognized the financial situation of the state and the revenue situation and have been proactive on making changes and doing best practices. In some cases, we've had a school system change their union, not continuing with the union they had in place, but taking that on their own. So people are recognizing that we can't continue doing the things we did in the past, that things do have to change. And especially you can relate it right back to the change in population. Our children have left. Our counts are down. And then you take Northern Michigan, where we have a lot to offer. We have to compete with those larger areas where maybe more accessibility to jobs are. But we have now identified what are our strong points in Northern Michigan and where can we create those jobs.
You mentioned, well, you say strong points, but you also mentioned earlier the idea of not picking winners and losers. Do those things balance each other out, or are we talking about two different concepts? Clarify if you can.
I will, and it's all about one thing, and that is 80% of our jobs are created in the family or small business, and that's what we're enhancing. For example, agriculture. I sat on the agriculture committee and also the subcommittee of ag processing. We took several tours this past year at different processing of agriculture. There are many jobs available in ag right today that people hear agriculture. There are not just labor jobs available, but there are high-tech jobs available. I was at a blueberry processing plant here in Michigan, and their product is not touched by human hands from harvest to the retail shelf. Those are the kind of things we have going out there, and we need to get our curriculums versed towards what would work in our area, and that's what we're about.
So to sum up in our last 30 seconds, then, if you're to leave the voters with that one final message, why you are hoping that they will cast their vote for you, what would that message be?
That message would be, I'm from the district, I've been there 30 years, hiring people, making a payroll, and creating jobs, and that's where we're at here in Michigan. Newsweek ranks Michigan as the #1 job creator in the country. We have created over 100,000 jobs this past year and will continue that. And by the way, the compensation on those 100,000 jobs was above the national average on compensation. So again, putting Michigan back to work is what I'm all about.
Thanks very much for taking the time to talk about the issues with us, and good luck with the rest of the campaign.
Well, thank you, David. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us as well this time for Meet the Candidates. Our guest has been Representative Bruce Rendon, Republican from Michigan's 103rd State House District. He is seeking re-election to a second term in that office. This and all of our segments being posted on our website. You can find that at WCMU.org. And on behalf of all of us here, we hope that you'll get out and use your right to vote on Tuesday, November 6th.